Hey, what is happening, everybody? Thank you very much for joining me on the video. My name is John Denton, and yes, it is about that time. We're doing the top 10 albums of the year. In fact, let me reframe that. We're doing my top 10 albums of the year. Like I say on these things, I'm not Pitchfork Media. I'm not trying to make a statement of fact. So quickly, before we dive into the top 10, I'm just going to go through a couple of my honourable mentions. Now, first off, obviously, I am in the UK, and you will hear about a lot of UK music along with US music in this top 10. We've got to give a shout out to the man Skepta with Ignorance is Bliss, an excellent album. Probably was close to top 10, extremely listenable, but perhaps as a whole body of work didn't quite keep up to the standard of Bullet from a Gun or Grease Mode. Again, just narrowly missing out. I guess these are all narrowly missing out. It's Ginger from Brockhampton, which I think some people would have probably thought would have made it into my top 10. However, just in terms of pure re-listenability, it's not been on my rotation perhaps as much as Saturation 1 and 3. However, still, what a fantastic project and what a fantastic group that they are. Okay, moving into the pop realm for my next honourable mention, and it's actually Charlie from Charlie XCX. A very interesting mixing, kind of experimental stuff, mixing a lot of like hard electronic music, pop music of course with pop hooks. And while the album is perhaps a bit too long and there's plenty of songs that don't really hit as much as some of the big hits on there, it's still definitely worth listening. Probably the best pure pop album I heard this year. And then quickly going into a couple of metalcore albums. Yes, I still listen to heavy music, although nowhere near as much as I used to. And I've always been more of the new metal / metalcore side of things anyway. But first off, if you're in the market for something ridiculously heavy, something that will strike you in the core of your fucking liver, then A Different Shade of Blue by a band called Not Loose will do that straight away. Within seconds of the first track, you know you're into something else. It's this down-tuned new metal style metalcore. Filthy, filthy. Not for the faint-hearted. Not perhaps the first record to get into if you're thinking, let me try this metal thing out. But still, if you're in the market for something ridiculous, then definitely check that out. If you're in the market for something slightly more melodic, then Killswitch Engage's Atonement album is actually pretty strong. Again, it's not really breaking the mold, but it felt like the band had kind of expanded their sound to bring in slightly more orchestral, slightly more mature sound, and one of the more enjoyable heavy albums of the year. Really enjoyed You Know What I'm Saying by Danny Brown, but perhaps didn't hit quite as much as Atrocity Exhibition, but still thoroughly good listen. I love the track 3 Tears with Run the Jewels. Very much looking forward to their new record as well early next year. We've got another UK one, Revenge is Sweet by Krebs and Conan, just a real bar heavy album. My first real introduction to those guys as well. I'm a little bit late on some of the UK stuff. And then just a quick shout out to my man Kemba, who I heard on the XXXTentacion album project, whatever you want to call it, on the track Demons. I never heard of him before, and he killed that whole album with his verse, and went on to check out his album Gilda, which is all about his mother who sadly passed, but just a real like varied style, but hip hop, strong New York hip hop album. He is a lyricist, he has great flow, he has great energy, and I chatted to the guy a little bit on social media as well. Real good guy. Definitely one to look out for. Kemba with Gilda. If I'd heard that earlier in the year, it probably could have actually made it into the top 10. I just haven't spun it enough. Okay, here we go. Number 10, and yes, it's that man. It's Denzel Curry with the album Zoo. Now this one hit fairly early in the year compared to some of the others, so it had passed me by, but I had the absolute honour of seeing Denzel live in London just earlier this month, and his performance fucking blew me away. I don't think I've ever seen more energy and more passion from a live performer across any genre of music, and that's for real. Feels like a bit of a shorter cut than Taboo, and obviously it came out quite quickly afterwards, but with the video to Ricky, which definitely spoke to me, talking about Backstreet Brawls, the Kimbo Slice, Jorge Masvidal style from Florida. I didn't even realise that his brother was anything to do with that. And then just those just hard, filthy beats throughout. I mean, the track Birds with Rick Ross is just one of the nastiest beats you'll hear all year. You have the other single in Speedboat, but just overall, it's just a strong project from one of the most gifted artists that I've come across. Definitely, people ask me all the time, who's my favourite artist I've discovered in this journey, and there's artists that I've gone on to discover far more of their work, but I knew who they were before, Cole, Kendrick, Drake, and others, but I'd never, literally before I started reacting to music, had never heard of Denzel Curry before, and now he is one of my favourite artists in the world, and like I say, one of the best live performers I've seen. Always going to be looking forward to anything else he drops. Right then, number 9, and it's Peggy. Yeah, it's that man, JPEGMAFIA, with All My Heroes Are Cornballs. I couldn't quite work out, having listened to both a decent amount, which I preferred, Veteran or Cornballs. Probably Veteran, just because it has a little bit more of the nastier side to it, not that Cornballs doesn't. But with tracks like Keenan vs. Kel, Beta Male Strategies, Free the Frail, which is almost like a kind of R&B classic if it was dragged backwards through the internet. I don't even know. I just like JPEGMAFIA generally. You can't always put on an album like this to listen to. It depends on mood. But bizarrely, despite how obtuse some of his music can be, and deliberately so of course, it does become more and more listenable the more you actually spin it, which is weird. Can you say spin it anymore? I don't really know if that's even worth saying anymore. I'm going to keep saying it, fuck it. JD Boomer in the house. And I just like how prolific he is, but I like the fact that he is not scared to leave a lot of his music on the cutting room floor and just put out the stuff that he thinks working at the best. I think there's two schools of thought. There's the school of thought where you can only put something out into the public until it's perfect, and there's a school of thought where you should put kind of everything that you're working on out, especially in the digital age. I definitely subscribe more to the second one, however, especially if you're kind of early on in your career, because you just keep pushing stuff out there and see what hits, see what works, and don't be afraid of failing a little bit. But at the same time, I think finding that middle ground and shaving some of the edges off, but still being that prolific, is probably the way to go, especially for an artist like Peggy. Number 8, and it's the first UK album on my top 10, and it's Grey Area by Little Simz, an album I've been asked to react to many times, but I'd actually heard pretty much when it came out, just because I've been hearing so many recommendations for it. And yeah, just as an example of musicianship, as an example of a female, I don't even want to bring up the female MC thing because it's kind of irrelevant, but at the same time there are songs on there that are about female empowerment that are important to recognize as well. But regardless, just as a rapper, just as an artist, just as somebody who is capable of delivering lines, punchlines, bars, moments on a record, Little Simz is up there as one of the strongest around, US, UK, Australia, anywhere. But with the song that hit for me the most was Boss when I first heard it. Just that bass line was always going to speak to me. People who know me know my musical taste. You know, I'm a sucker for kind of heavy blues, heavy rock blues, that sort of thing. But then you start listening more and you've got tracks like Venom, tracks like Offense, tracks like Pressure, tracks like Flowers, and you realise you're actually listening to a bit of a UK classic, and definitely an album to check out if you are in the market for a female MC who absolutely has the chops to hang with anybody. I think Grey Area is going to be one of those records that continues to gain praise year after year after year, and as her star grows, obviously she was in Top Boy as well, did a fantastic job acting in Top Boy, playing a character that had absolutely nothing to do with music. I think we're going to see over the next few years her star grow. This album, given more credence, is a very important album for UK music. I'm very excited to see what she does next. Okay, number 7, Benny the Butcher, with the plugs that I met. So glad that I listened to this album before the year went out. I mean, it's a very short record. I'm going to call it an album because I don't care about the rules. Crowns for Kings may be my favourite song of the year, and I'm not doing a video on my favourite song of the year because I just can't remember and I don't want to have to order it. But the way the beat works on that, Benny's verse, and then fucking Black Thought comes in and just lays a fucking atomic bomb across that beat. But then you've got like 18 Wheeler with Pusha T. You've got Dirty Harry with Conway on there. I mean, just as like a 7-track snapshot into what's happening in that kind of Griselda scene. I absolutely loved it. I can spin it whenever, and Crowns for Kings will be a song that I have on playlists for as long as I'll be around. Okay then, number 6, and it's IGOR from Tyler the Creator. Now I know a lot of people have this as their number 1 album of the year, and it's definitely something that I've spun a lot. It's also an album I like the fact that I can play certain tracks around my family, for example Earthquake, but at the same time it's such a listenable piece of work. And even though it is far more of a singing experience than his other work that I've heard, and obviously there's very little actual rapping on there, he shows that he has vocal chops without sounding like an incredible Weekend Frank Ocean style beautiful singer. But I like it when somebody can kind of stick within their range and make music that sounds good because it's delivered with passion, intent and integrity. But also there's darker tracks like New Magic Wand on there as well. It's a brilliant example of the importance of a body of work and the importance of an album. This is a bit more of a concept album about relationship, I don't think an album needs to be a concept album, but I do think there's something to be said about having a body of work together. We've kind of been through the era of the album death, and it was kind of the era where people were downloading individual songs, or buying and downloading individual songs. Most likely they were just LimeWiring stuff. It kind of happened from the turn of this century up probably until Spotify really started to take over a couple of years ago. And now I feel like we're moving back to the era of albums as well. Yes, everybody's picking out tracks and playlisting them, but I think all you got to do, I mean, even if just taking it as a sample size, looking at this channel, look what all the biggest videos are. Pretty much they're the full album reactions. People are very interested in full projects. They're getting their head around what was always the case from the record, tape and CD eras, that, you know, a body of work put together, delivered, and meant to be played in order. There's something to be said for that, and there really is something to be said for Tyler Creator's IGOR, because it feels like a snapshot, a moment in time, something that's curated. If these songs were just displaced and put across the rest of his work, they'd still be great songs, but it wouldn't have that impact of having it all together. I put some stuff out on social media, and I would say among my audience, my listenership, my readership, my viewership, whatever you want to call it, I would say consensus seems to be, not there is a consensus, but the most noise I heard was for IGOR as the #1 record. Right then, number 5, into the top 5, and yes, it's the only kind of non-rap, hip-hop, whatever you want to call it, album in my top 10, and it's Innoculum by Tool. I actually know that a lot of the classic Tool fans aren't that keen on that record, but myself was always somebody who admired Tool, liked some of their songs, but I wouldn't have ever called myself a super fan. This record, for some reason, all 90 fucking minutes of it, just spoke to me in a different way. The complexity of the music, the constant changing time signatures. These are Tool standards, don't get me wrong. How long some of these songs take to build. There are 12-minute songs on here, multiple songs. You've got a track like Tempest, which is a 15-minute track. Listen, this is not easy going, but it's music to just sit there and kind of lose yourself in. The complexity of it, the production, it's an absolute masterclass in audio engineering. But yet, there's tunefulness to it. There's some like intermediary songs which they kind of fill the gaps between the big numbers, but at the same time, for me, for somebody that was suddenly, not even really realizing, was in the market for some real progressive metal, but with that Tool edge, with that Maynard James Keenan edge, it really just spoke to me, and I had it on repeat the month it came out. I wasn't really listening to much else, so it had to make it into the top 10, and indeed had to make it into the top 5. And yeah, that track Tempest is an absolute fucking monster. So again, probably not the record I'd recommend if you're thinking I'm going to dip my toe into the water when it comes to heavier music, and I know plenty of people who watch my channel are interested in doing that, and I will do some videos around that next year, early next year. Wouldn't necessarily recommend this one, however, you never know. You never know what's going to speak to you in music, so maybe check it out. Maybe see if you can just kind of lose yourself in what this is. I mean, if you're the type of person that likes to put on headphones, shut your eyes, and be taken somewhere by music, you like music that's transportative like that, then this may actually be the album for you. Who knows? Let me know if you have listened to this and you're typically not a metal or hard rock fan, and let me know what you think, whether you hit me up on socials or on the comments on this video. Alright then, number 4, and it is a real British classic. Really as an example of what an amazing year it's been for UK music, it has to be Nothing Great About Britain by the effervescent and quite incredible Slowthai. I mean, in another parallel universe, this would probably be #1 record. I would not necessarily argue against this being the #1 record of the year. There are times where this has been my #1 record of the year, and then I've gone and listened to the albums that are above it again, and it's slipped down just in terms of how musically those albums hit for me. But as a debut, it really is quite outstanding, marrying that kind of punk edge with a real lyricist heart as a rapper, a different type of delivery, all sorts of different types of instrumentation. There's stuff that reminds you of the Streets, there's stuff that reminds you of Blur, there's stuff that reminds you of punk music, there's stuff that reminds you of grime, there's stuff that reminds you of UK rap, there's stuff that reminds you of US rap. But he is a unique character. He is somebody that is kind of the voice of a different type of the Streets. He's the kind of a voice of a disconnected Britain, because he's not from London. He's not from far from London, but most UK music, as we know right now, is coming from London, and London, as amazing as it is, can be a bit of a bubble. So somebody to come from outside that and still be interacting with London artists, but also interacting with US artists like Denzel Curry, like Brockhampton. Speaking about what's going on in cities in the country that aren't necessarily London, or speaking about what's going on in the rest of the country and some of the edge there. But also just having tracks like Dorman that will speak to anybody who's just gone out on the piss in England, quite honestly. It's a classic. It's going to go down as a legendary record. If he can follow it up with something as strong as this, and he's already come out with a new track with Muramasa, Deal With It, which definitely maintains that energy, then he's going to be one of the artists that's most important in this country. And I love the fact that we're in a situation in musicality in our country, how open-eared people are becoming in this country, that he has been successful. This isn't some underground thing, you know, Slowthai is a big deal. And I think that's fucking awesome. His performance at Glastonbury was amazing. He's just bringing in listeners from all sorts of different genres, all parts of the country, all ages, in fact, despite his youthful energy. So yeah, I'm almost convincing myself it's the album of the year as I speak. But no, I wrote my list and I'm going to leave it as number 4. Okay then, number 3, and it's Is He Real from IDK. An album which I haven't heard that many people speak that highly of this year. It kind of came and went for a lot of people, but for me it really struck a chord from the second I first heard it. It's like a 35-minute blast of, I mean, near perfection. Whether it's the heavy hitting 24 or the kind of soaring beauty of European skies, they all come from a different style, a different place, but they all kind of tie into this theme. And some of the tracks are so short, and the way they blend into each other, it's almost like a kind of redefinition of what the album can be. As kind of a concept, as kind of a construct in 2019, you know, it being shorter, but there's still being plenty of tracks full of ideas. And then by the end, I mean, there's an absolute emotional haymaker towards the end of this album. I won't spoil it for anybody who wants to go and put this on, but I would say if you're just a fan of, you know, hip hop and a fan of rap, fan of somebody who can be both hard hitting and lyrical, but can also bounce between different styles, then this is absolutely essential stuff, to be honest. And it really felt like a real star-making coming out party for IDK. Now, whether or not that's actually happened, I'm not sure. I think probably he's the type of artist that has broken through to another level with this record, but there's still more levels for him to go to before he truly reaches his potential and his true star potential. I don't mean musical potential. I mean in terms of, you know, people really talking about him in kind of the wider scheme. But also, you know, like this is an album full of Easter eggs and kind of religious undertones and overtones. It's an album to really live with. It's an album to listen to many times. And the beautiful thing is the short runtime kind of allows that. Even in the low attention streaming era, I do think there's something to be said for albums that are in the 30 to 45 minute range, as opposed to going all the way to, you know, the 1 hour 20 minute range. Whatever suits your project, of course, but there is something to be said for that. I was just really pleased to kind of be there from the beginning of this record. I first heard of IDK on that track with Denzel Curry, but here he really, you know, stands on his own with one of the best albums of the year. There's no two ways about it. So yeah, highly recommended. Alright then, top two time, and it's Freddie Gibbs and Madlib with Bandana. I fucking love this record. The first time I heard the track Yanis, I didn't know what to do with myself, man. The way that beat kicked in, just everything, and then Anderson .Paak comes in, honestly mate, it just made me want to kind of turn inside out and be an inside out person. Fucking amazing. You've also got tracks like Palm Olive, you've got tracks like Flat Tummy Tea, which fucking hits like a brick to the face. You got Crime Pays. The production's so crazy and all over the place with all the cut up samples, and apparently Madlib made it on a fucking iPad, which is just insane to me. But regardless, you've got those hard hitting cocaine bars. You've got the introspective bars from Freddie. You got a guy that sounds like he's at the absolute top of his game, where he's marrying pure talent, skill, and still enough youthful energy. I think he's a similar age to me, but also with a sense of mastery, which is something to be spoken about. I know a lot of the musicians who are popping now are very young, but there's something to be said about a sense of true mastery, to be in awe of somebody who's been around the block and has managed to fine-tune his game, and now they're coming with their stronger stuff, and both him and Madlib are in that place on this record. But regardless of all that sort of stuff, it's just full of fucking bangers. I think it's the type of album you can put on for somebody who only really liked hip-hop from 1994. There's plenty of people my age in this country who are like that. They go, oh yeah, I fucking love hip-hop. Nas, Illmatic, and I'm like, Yeah, but there's been 25 years since then. But regardless, you can put it on for them. You can put it on for new school fans, because a track like Yanis just kicks so much. You can put it on for people who like rock music and only like beats in hip hop and don't even listen to the lyrics. But I think for people who are just really, really, really into where hip hop can be in 2019, then you can't really go wrong. It's one of the most listenable records I've heard in fucking years. It is just an absolute monster. And I know so many people are going to yell at me in the comments, why haven't you done the Pinata reaction yet? Fuck. I don't have a good answer for that. It's got to happen. It's going to happen. I'm so excited to hear it. I've just been putting it off because a million other things have been happening. But yes, it will be coming soon. But Bandana, Freddie, Gibbs, Madlib, what a fucking classic. What a combo. What an absolute tag team championship combo. Amazing stuff. Right, here we go, guys. My John Denton, J Did a Prophet, Johnny XP, Johnny Issa, whatever the hell you want to call me. It is my number one album 2019. And it had to be, it's no real surprise if you've been following me for a while, it had to be Psychodrama by Dave. An absolutely astonishing body of work from one of the most talented British musicians that I've ever come across. Dave is a young man that speaks to me at the core of my soul in a way that I can't even really explain. He's unquestionably an extraordinarily talented rapper. His ability with punchlines, with wordplay, with double, triple entendres is about as slick as you get from British rapper, but it also can stand up there with anyone in the US, and I do definitely encourage US fans to listen to Dave's music because it isn't too slang heavy. It doesn't have necessarily a classic UK sound if you don't like grime or all that sort of stuff. Very atmospheric, it's actually very haunting, but he's just such a slick rapper. But then when you come into an album as a concept, this whole album is a concept, is Dave speaking to a therapist. And even the opening track Psycho, and you can go and check out my breakdown of that track in my Songs of the Decade little series that I've been doing. There are elements where he's speaking to the therapist on that song, there are elements where he's speaking to his fans, there are elements where he's speaking to himself, there are elements where he's speaking to different parts of himself. It's such a fucking intelligent track, but it also slaps. Then you've got the dark Streatham, who's going to speak to anybody who's had any sort of inner city life in England. Then the fucking outstanding Black, which got mainstream radio airplay in the UK, and it will go down as one of the most important songs of the year. You got my personal favourite track, Screwface Capital, which is just a bar fucking orchestra. It really shows Dave off as just somebody that's not only a very introspective lyricist, not only somebody who's willing to speak about what's going on in his life, who's willing to speak about what's going on in the country, who's willing to speak about what's going on in his specific area, but also somebody who can just flex with pure wordplay and pure lyricism. Screwface Capital isn't an emotional song. It isn't a song where Dave's talking about crying into his pillow, which, you know, he obviously does in Psycho. It's a different type of edge to it. I fucking love that track. Yeah, one of the songs of the summer in Location with the amazing Burna Boy, and then of course you have the absolute emotional gut punch of Leslie, which I won't spoil if you haven't heard it. Is a very powerful track. I heard Anthony Fantano talking about how he didn't like the instrumentation on this album. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Like I say, it's disquieting, it's haunting. Dave is a pianist. Much of the low-key piano that's played on this album is actually by him, which does make a difference, I think, if you're somebody that likes to look at everything in a holistic fashion, which I absolutely do. But the bottom line, this is a personal top 10, and sometimes an artist just speaks to you as a person. And despite David being so much younger than I am, there's things that he say that just strike through to the core of my being, unlike many other artists. You know, we've got him winning the Mercury Prize, we've got him doing a massive set in Glastonbury and having that incredible viral moment with the Alex Kid, video game reference. But at the same time, what's really important is that we have an artist that can speak as the kind of voice of a generation in a different way to many others, but also somebody that as UK fans we can put that across to them. Not that it should matter, but you know, it's just life, right? You like to just show off the things that you have that are the best to other people and go, no, fuck it, actually we have this. And you know, if we as British people are taking ownership of Dave, whatever the hell that means, you can put that on the table to any American rap fan and go, listen to that track, listen to the fucking bars, listen to the lyrics, and say that the UK does not have rappers of the highest standard. Now, to be fair, I don't think that argument is coming back from the US as much as it used to be, but regardless, It had to be my favourite album of the year. I remember the first time I heard it, just listening to my car and being blown away by it. Shout out to Santan Dave. Phenomenal work. So excited for what you have coming up next. So excited for your future career, but also so excited that you managed to put out what an outstanding body of work. Guys, that's about it. Let me know your albums of the year down below. You can get mad at mine, but like I said, I'm not Pitchfork Media. I'm not trying to put down a statement of fact, man. These are just my top 10 albums. That's just the way it goes. Very excited to see what yours are down below. If you are new, please subscribe, but I doubt you are based on this video, but regardless, and of course do check the Patreon link. There's plenty of extra content on there. And I just want to say a big thank you to end the video to everybody that's been supporting me, and it's been a crazy year for me in terms of YouTube. Walked away from a channel that had at the time very nearly 300,000 subscribers, would have had way more than that by now, and kept going about, walked away for the right reasons, and then the support on my solo channel since then have really been very heartwarming and humbling and outstanding, to be honest. We're on the motorway to 100k. It's a weird feeling because I've been through 100k once before, but it's going to hit very differently this time when we get there. And yeah, just wanted to say thank you to everybody. I hope you guys, if you're seeing this before Christmas, have an amazing holiday period, a great new year. And there's going to be videos, don't worry, there's going to be videos all through that period anyway, but you know, just thanks, that's it. Top 10, that's done. Right, peace. It's longer than I thought it was going to be. Oosh.